Hello, and welcome back to our single page application we're building using Angular and Web API. My name is Mike Emo, and let's get started. So in the very first video, in our last video, I talked about what we were going to build. I kind of showed this application that we're about to build, and I talked quite a bit about GitHub. And really quick, very quick, if you already have a Git client installed, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and clone github.com emomon23 intro to Angular, and then make sure you do a checkout on the very first hash, which is B1B7B. If that didn't make any sense to you, then please go back and watch my first video, and that'll show you how to get this repository down on your local machine and how to get it set up. But assuming this has been done, assuming that you're ready to go, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to talk about is the module. Module is one of those overused words where people are talking about, well, this Angular has these modules. Well, what's a module? It's like a user control. This is DLL. What are we talking about? What's a module in the context of Angular? Well, in the context of Angular, you can think of a module as a bucket. It's a container to put things in. It's a very smart and helpful bucket container. And so, for example, here's a module we can put in our controllers. So we're going to have a products controller, we're going to have a checkout controller, we can put in filters. So there's some built-in filters, like there's the order by filter, there's the filter, which we'll be talking about, and then we're going to be building our distinct categories filter, and we're going to be putting that into our main module or container. There's constants, so you can put in constants inside of a module, so that throughout your application you just ask the module, hey, go get me this constant products URL, and it'll retrieve that for you. We can put in factories, so you think of factories as a singleton that gets shared across controllers. And then of course there's the all powerful directives, right? Everybody talks about directives. Which in this particular application, I'm not going to be using any directives, and I'm doing that on purpose, and I will explain why in later videos. So now that we've identified what is a module and how do they work and what are they used for, I just want to cover a little bit of the anatomy of an Angular application in the rest of this video. And so if I can get you to open up that solution that you cloned down from GitHub in Visual Studio 2012 or later, and if you will just go and open up the default.html, you'll notice we've got our beginnings of our Angular application. And the first thing I want to point out to you is this ng-app directive. This is an Angular directive, and it is identifying our main module. And so what this means is we're telling Angular, look, everything between these tags here, anything that references Angular, anytime you see an Angular directive, go look for whatever I'm referencing inside this particular module. And so we're going to go ahead and rename this module now. We're going to call this the Sports Your Way app. The convention for this is your main module. You usually end it in app. So we're gonna create that right now, and you'll notice right away I'm pulling in some CSS. I'm using Bootstrap. We're using Bootstrap in this particular demo. I'm going to go ahead and change this title to Sports Your Way. It has nothing to do with Angular. This is just plain HTML. Sports Your Way. And next thing you'll notice is that I'm pulling in Angular, references to Angular and Angular routing. And you can find those over here in our Solution Explorer under Scripts, Angular. We got Angular and Angular routing. And next, I want to point out where I'm actually creating a module, and this is our main module. So I'm telling Angular, go ahead and create me a new bucket, new container called Sports Your Way. And you'll notice this notation. I've got these square brackets here. These square brackets contain a list of dependencies that this particular module has, this particular container has. Right now, we don't have any dependencies, so I'm just passing in an empty brackets. These brackets are required. Okay, if we take these brackets out, this means something entirely different to Angular. If we take these brackets out, we're asking Angular, to go find us a module that's already defined and give it to us because we want to use it. And so if we ran this code now, Angular would complain saying, I can't find the module. It hasn't been created. But by putting these brackets in there, we're telling Angular, no, I'm creating the module right now. Next thing you'll notice is that I'm passing in my main controller. Now this is not typical. You will not typically see this in a real Angular application. I'm doing this to make a point. Typically what you'll see is you won't see this here at all in your HTML. You'll see a script reference like this, but the name of the file is typically app.js. There was some confusion when I taught this at a workshop. People thought that app.js was a requirement, like you had to have a file and it had to be named app.js. No, you don't have to do that. It is a convention that you'll see in the industry, but I chose to do it this way to try to make that point. So keep in mind here, we're going to go look at this main controller here in 2 seconds. But before we open this folder, I just want to reiterate, I've already created Sports Your Way app module before I pulled this file in. Okay, so let's go take a look and see what main controller looks like right now. And you'll see main controller. I'm asking Angular, will you go get me a module called Sports Your Way? And because I created Sports Your Way before I pulled this file in, this call will execute. Angular will find this module. The very first thing I do with this container is I say, hey, I want to create a new controller. And I'm going to call this controller, imagine what I'm going to call it here, Sports Your Way controller. Okay. And so I'm saying this controller, I want to create a new controller called Sports Your Way, and here is the function for that particular controller. And you'll notice in here I've got this reference to scope. There's all this talk in Angular about scopes. Some people have a really tough time getting their head around what is scope. This analogy that I'm going to give breaks down pretty quickly, but for you .NET developers who have done MVC, you can think of scope for the time being. Think of scope like the view bag. Okay. So in .NET, we've got the controller, and the controller gets a bunch of data and it wants to make that data available for the view to render that data. So the controller can put that data into a view bag, and then the view can access the view bag to get that data. Well, here in Angular, we're going to use the scope to put the data into the scope, and then the view is going to reference the scope to render the data. We're going to see that in a moment. Really, really quickly, this dummy data. Where is this dummy data coming from? So for now, I just went up here and I created this JavaScript dummy data, and I've got an array of products, and each product has a name, a price, a description, and a category. And normally, you might have a separate service call for your list of categories. I purposely am doing it this way to drive home a point when we create filters in our next video. But so just remember that our products are coming from this dummy data, and our dummy data is being assigned to our Sports Your Way controller scope.data object. Okay, so scope.data equals dummy data. So right now we could say scope.data.products or scope.data.products or one dot name, and we'd be able to get the product name for that first or second product. Okay, so we've got the Sports Your Way controller. Now let's go back to our view. So at this point, after this script gets pulled in, we've now got a module with a controller, and that controller has a scope, and that scope has data, and that data has a list of products by the time we get down here. So imagine what I'm going to put in here. I need to reference a controller. So imagine what I'm going to stick in here. I'm going to put the controller in here, and because this is an Angular directive, I'm saying, okay, I got this controller, Sports Your Way controller. Well, Angular is going to go, well, where's my module? Well, here's my module. I've got a Sports Your Way app module, so I'm going to go up to this module, and I'm going to ask that module, do you have a controller called Sports Your Way? Give it to me, and then I'm going to start looping through this thing. And I'm going to start using this thing. So one of the things you'll see here is we've got this ng repeat. You can think of this as a for loop. And so I'm saying for each product in this controller, for Sports Your Way control, for each product in Sports Your Way controller dot scope dot data dot products, I want to loop through this. Now we don't have to put scope in here; it's inferred. So we're going to loop through the scopes data dot products, and we're going to display the product name, and we're going to display the product price, and we're going to display the product description. One thing I want to point out here on this product price is how we're using this currency filter. This is a built-in filter within Angular that will format this number in a currency format with a $sign and the proper decimal place. And so we're looping through this thing, and you'll notice that this controller is on the body tag. So everything within the body here that references Angular is going to be looking for the scope on the Sports Your Way controller. Pardon me. So we've updated some code here. Let's go ahead and save this and update our UI and make sure we're still working. Okay, that's still working. We got this app name here. Let's go ahead and change that. Let's just get that just to be thorough here. Sports Your Way. Again, let's verify it. Now, I highly recommend that when you're doing this exercise, whenever you're doing any JavaScript, keep that console up and running so that you can see bugs. You can see any bugs, and I'm going to show some interesting things with this console and bugs that you would expect to get, but you don't get later on. So this concludes this particular video. Go ahead and look at our next video where we're going to actually create some filters to display these categories over here. Thank you.